Guys, thanks for listening to the J. Scott Outdoors podcast. I also want to thank the following sponsors for their support of this podcast. Without them, this podcast would not be possible. I want to thank the Go Hunt Insider, Lorenzo Sartini and his crew over at Go Hunt. They have created the Insider, which is an amazing tool for you guys that are researching all these different western states and looking for which units to apply for and put in for. They also have the Go Hunt maps, the Go Hunt gear shop. Right now, go to gohunt.com, click sign up for the Insider. Use the J. Scott promo code. You're going to get a $50 Go Hunt gear shop gift card just for signing up. Go Hunt's been with me since the beginning of 2015. When I started this podcast, they've been a very loyal title sponsor of this podcast, and I want to thank them for their support. Make sure to go and sign up for the Go Hunt Insider. Use the J. Scott promo code. Guys, I also want to thank KUIU Ultralight Hunting. That's KUIU.com. KUIU Ultralight Hunting is a direct-to-consumer brand that sells the best ultralight hunting equipment and gear on the market today. You can go to KUIU.com, and order directly there on their website. I also want to thank phonescope.com. Cheston, the guys over at Phonescope. Go to phonescope.com. Anything you order there, use the JScott23 promo code, and you're going to get a 10% discount there at Phonescope. I also want to thank Lathrop & Sons. They're a custom boot system and custom footbed manufacturer. These guys are the boot doctors, the boot gurus. They're very, very helpful. They know a lot about boots. I have switched this season to the Lathrop & Sons Encompass boot. That's what I've worn primarily on my Coues deer and mule deer hunts in Mexico. And then I use the Mountain Hunter for my sheep hunts, specifically desert sheep. In any of that more technical terrain, Lathrop & Sons has a phenomenal 3D mapping imprints and tracing kit. They make custom orthotics, just really, really comfortable, very user-friendly boots and custom insoles. Go to lathropsons.com to find out more information. You can also check out Lathrop & Sons on Instagram. They have 3 custom boot options: the Mountain Hunter, the Mountain Hunter Elite, and the Mountain Hunter Encompass, as well as the High Country Synergy footbeds custom. They also make all of these custom footbeds in wide and super wide, as well as the boots, which is rare for a boot manufacturer. Reach out to the owners, Stephen and James at Lathrop & Sons at 618-544-8782. That's lathropsons.com. Guys, I want to thank you for supporting this podcast. Love to hear your feedback. Any questions you might have, you can reach out at jscottoutdoors@gmail.com. That's my email address. You can follow along on Instagram at jscottoutdoors. Always feel free to send me a direct message. Love hearing from you guys. And let's get right to these episodes. I can see you're already just in a great, finely tuned mood for this podcast.
Are you fat and happy, or are you skinny and run down?
You would not believe me. I
heard you were on some keto diet.
Yeah, so on December 5th, I started eating. So my regimen is 3 to 5 eggs in the morning and bacon. But it's no nitrate. It's beef bacon, pork bacon, both, but no nitrates. You know, none of the bad stuff. I eat that in the morning. Then I eat about a half a ribeye steak for lunch and a half a ribeye steak for dinner. Every once in a while, I'll throw in an avocado. And that was for the first 30 days. I literally did not eat anything else. Then the next 30 days, I started adding in a little bit of fruit. So I'll have a banana every morning, maybe every other morning with the eggs and with the bacon. I'll try and add, an avocado for lunch or for dinner every other day. And then I started adding in a little bit of pineapple, grapes, a few like blackberries and that kind of thing. And I didn't weigh when I started, but I always weigh about 189, 190 pounds. I'm 6'3", and the weight just fell off me. So I didn't eat any breads, any tortilla chips. Little did I know I lived on Pop-Tarts and tortilla chips. I'm a salsa chips and salsa fanatic, and I just never realized it, but I was probably eating, a quarter of a bag of tortilla chips with salsa every day for lunch. And when I cut that out, so I cut out all bread, all tortillas, all sugars, and 20 pounds is just shut off me. I'm like 169, 170. And I mean, I haven't been this light probably since maybe early part of college.
You better get a whole new KUIU wardrobe.
Holy smokes. Like, I got the belt pulled as tight as it'll go, and my pants, my wife's like, you look like a marathon runner or something. I mean, it's ridiculous, but I feel good. My joints feel good. I can't believe by just changing diet and cutting out sugars and breads.
You got any blood work?
No, I'm scheduled next month. Next month. And the big thing going on this was, there's people saying, oh, you get high cholesterol. Well, everything I read is these animal fats. There's like LDLs, HDLs, that it's actually good cholesterol, if that makes sense, and that there's this whole notion out there that, we need to eat vegetables, and some of the guys I've been following are like, that's a bunch of bull. You eat animal-based, an animal-based diet. Well, all I can say is it's worked for me. My friend that I fish with, he got diagnosed with colon cancer, and he's gone through chemo, and he's got a full, clean bill of health, but the doctor kind of told him, it's a lot of it's due to eating processed foods. And so it made me kind of look at my diet and say, what are you eating? Well, geez, I mean, when I go hunting, I eat a Pop-Tart or two a day. I eat granola bars, sugar. And so anyway, I just decided, hey, I'm going to try and get healthy and eat. And man, you can't even believe, you can because you're into it and all that, but I didn't realize how much diet played into, this whole thing.
Oh, yeah.
But
especially the older you get.
The cool thing for me is the first week was horrible. Like, horrible. Like, I wanted to go just get a loaf of bread and eat like 4 slices, just wolf it down, and I craved sugar so bad. Now, eating so much protein, I'm never hungry. Like, I have to remind myself to eat lunch.
Yeah.
And I'm not I was notorious for being a snacker, like snacking on every 30 minutes, an hour, just eating something. Now I'm not even hungry. And, so that part of it is really cool for me. So I made it through Coues deer season and sheep season. I was worried about, like, what am I, when I'm glassing, I usually eat a granola bar and that kind of stuff. And I just would cook a ribeye steak the night before and cut it in slices, and then I would just put it in a container and just eat that. And once I got used to it, my body, I don't even want that other stuff.
That's good.
So, sorry to take up all the time. Let's talk.
Oh, you're good.
Let's talk Arizona elk and antelope. Got Craig Steele here, Exclusive Pursuit Outfitters, Predator Exclusives, Rock Steady. How are we looking, Mr. Craig, for Arizona elk? I've got to think you're pretty excited about the outlook.
Yeah, I'm excited. I mean, it's the first year in 2 years that we've actually had good precipitation to this point. And actually, we've had really good precipitation. So that is good news. I think 19 and 20 were the last 2 years that we had anything close to this. So it's a good start, especially for those guys that have a lot of points. We'll see how it finishes, but it's very saturated in much of the high country. Some of the eastern part of the state hasn't, from the data, hasn't gotten as much as some of the central and western part of the state, but overall it looks pretty good.
So, as a hunter, when we start looking at how many points we have and what units we can draw, and checking out GoHunt.com and the Insider, and trying to calculate, okay, where am I at point structure, and you start looking at all these units. Obviously your bread and butter unit there is unit 10. From a trend standpoint, I know that 10 was probably the best unit in the state for a long time, and then there was a period when they had high early rifle tags. I want to say they had 100 at one time, but maybe that's just my memory, but I want to say they had like 100 early rifle tags, and then they started dropping those back down, and they bumped the archery hunts way up, and then they dropped them back down. As far as just a baseline trend, how do you see the herd of elk in unit 10 now, historically? Are we slightly starting our way trending back up? Are we on a couple year wave of it getting better, or where are we?
I mean, I think it's, depends on how far you go back. I could, recite that from my mind, but as far as the last 10 to, 15 years, I mean, I think it's good. It's headed in the right direction as far as, for me, it's, you can kill cows. That's how you manage the herd, is by killing cow elk. There's still a lot of cows in all of that country. With that being said, I look at the age. The age is the number one thing. A big bull's got to be at least 6 to start even really hit his stride, and really he's not really even full stride until he's probably about 8. So overall, I think it's trending upward, especially since those, the years you were talking about in the 2000, and I might get the years wrong, but like 2013, 14, 15, and maybe even 16, but for sure 13, 14, 15, the years that they basically doubled the tags in there. And that really, really hurt the age class. Doubled all the bull elk tags. So with that being said, I think it was like either 16 or 17, they pulled back, and the Game and Fish did a good job recognizing kind of what they were doing, and they pulled back, and slowly but surely from our end, we've seen the age class, definitely go up. I wouldn't say, I think it's probably plateaued now, about, where it needs to be. I would prefer to kill 10 plus year old bulls, every bull that we hunt and shoot, and every, for every hunter that's out there, but that just doesn't happen depending on, the hunter, the year, the hunt. So with that being said, I think it's great. We obviously, as we have some private land that we lease in there, so we're able to kind of control a little bit more as far as what is taken that's while it's on the property, and what we're kind of targeting, and not really rush. So last year I was just looking at the numbers, and the Game and Fish's numbers, they're trying to do a good job. I wish they would make it mandatory, that everybody, I don't know how they would, pulls a tooth. It's voluntary now. The only thing I don't like about it, they do publish that data on the Game and Fish website, and I don't like that they put the last names of the hunters on there just for privacy reasons. But with that being said, they do publish their information. I think 2021's is a little bit incomplete, but 2020's is on there. And obviously you don't have to do it. But last year's numbers from what I was able to gather for the early rifle, the average age of the bull killed. Now these are just the ones that were reported, was 6.6 years old. And for archery, it was 6.9 years old. So, I mean, considering you got DIY guys, maybe guys that don't hunt a lot, maybe some hardcore guys in there, maybe some guided hunters in there. That's a pretty good age. Any of those age classes that are 6.5 to 7. I'd rather it be 8.
I was going to say, imagine if we could bump that up to 8.5, the difference that we would have. But
our average, what our bulls last year, cumulative on the early hunts between the early rifle and archery in there, was 8.8 years old.
Yeah, and then you just look at the size, the antler size, and it's considerably better.
Yeah, and I mean, none of the bulls that we killed last year, even on I would say a marginal slightly below average as a whole antler growth year, all the bulls we killed with our clients were 350 plus, and that was a good year. I think the oldest bull we took, according to the lab, was 11, and we send ours off ourselves so we can get them out quicker, and also for the privacy thing that is kind of an issue for some hunters, having their name put out there. Yeah, that was good. I mean, and we've kind of averaged, I would say, I'd have to go back and pull all the numbers for us, but we've kind of averaged in that 8 to 9 years old range for those hunt the last 3 years. So that's a good thing. Actually, I should go back and say that was 2021 data for the Game and Fish, and that was our 2022 data, because the Game and Fish doesn't have that 2022 data
published yet.
So,
yeah. So overall, you think 10 is holding? You think it's over that period where they really saw a decline in age when they really upped the tags? With that being said, on a good moisture year like this, with 2 great monsoon seasons and then this winter moisture season, there's probably going to be some really good bulls across that 9, 10, even 18, some of that country up there. Would you not agree?
Yeah, I mean, considering the last 2 years compared to this year, and you threw it in there, hit the nail on the head. We've had 2 good monsoons, so catch water is good. Overall, 2019, 2020, although they were great precipitation years from December to the end of March through April, I guess, which is that critical time period for precipitation for antler growth for elk. They were very bad monsoons overall, especially for 9, 10, 8, 18s, those areas.
Well, they were bad early monsoons. Then all of a sudden, late August, September, it came back with a vengeance, but too late to grow antlers, right?
Oh yeah, in my opinion, the monsoon always hits too late.
Yeah,
it always hits too late because those bulls are usually done. They need those in my opinion, they need that body fat and to recuperate from the rut and the season. They need to be able to put on all that weight and in the recovery time period from, most of the time they're not really doing it in November, but when the feed starts to sprout from the end of January through April, and then, as you know, May and June are typically super dry months. They have the monsoon. It says the season starts June 15th, but that's just a dummy thing. It doesn't actually start until we get 3 days of dew point at 55 degrees
or
and higher.
Right.
And that usually takes place somewhere between the 4th of July and like July 15th. So, most of those bulls are 85 to 100% done by that time.
So a year like this where you actually have winter and spring moisture, you think it will make a big difference. And I guess your hypothesis will be tested this year. And I agree with you. I think, normally we're sitting here in February going, well, it's been kind of dry and, hopefully we have a decent monsoon. But the reality is this year it's looking really good. So if you and I speculate on this stuff enough and hypothesize about this stuff, it's probably going to prove us right here that this year, if we think that winter moisture is the most important thing, which I'm confident it is, I think this year should shine across the state.
Yeah, I would honestly take, February, March, and the early April precipitation over
December,
November, December precipitation any day of the week. So right as it sits right now, I do think, talking with Lee too, I do think that I don't think there's any way possible that overall, we're speaking overall, and guys always are out there like, well, what about this bull? And there's some bulls that just are genetically inferior, and there's all sorts of factors that weigh into whether or not a bull is going to hit his maximum potential or close to it. But I do think even if let's say we just from today on until they're done growing, we don't get another storm, I think we're going to be in that average area, if that's the case. And now if we can get just some average precipitation between today through April, I think we're going to be in that above average range. And if we get off the charts precipitation from now until then, I think it's going to be one of those banner years.
Yeah. Let's talk about season dates a little bit. The new moon is September 15th. How does that play in with the Unit 10 archery opener in your opinion? And then I believe the full moon is the 29th, so that'll be kind of during early rifle hunts. What are your thoughts on archery season dates?
Man, I'm not going to sit here and lie. I honestly do not worry about the moon. I've hunted too many years in a row and too many years in archery hunts, and there's times on a slow rut, yes, especially hunting where we hunt in Unit 10 for the most part. Maybe if you're hunting public and you're competing with some pressured animals, I totally get that. You want to, and you only have X amount of time. You want to set yourself up for failure, for success, not failure. But I honestly, now the dates are a little bit later, so I think it's, as far as in the calendar, as far as the day of the year that they start on, but so that's good for the archery hunters. But it could also be, it could also be one of those years too where you want to be hunting September 5th.
Right, they could go off early like they tend to do in Unit 10.
That doesn't happen that often, but it does happen. And then there's years when, you want it to be later. So with that being said, I think it's kind of a crapshoot as far as that goes. I really just, from my standpoint, from what we do, I really just, the season's going to be what it is. If you're going to start analyzing, and this is just my opinion, new moon, the dates, and antler growth, you start factoring so many different things. I think a lot of people might get information overload. And you know what I mean? And then they're just,
information overload's good for podcasters.
I know. They just I just seen too many guys
meltdown.
The whole points game, especially you see these points changing, and what they did in Arizona a few years back with the non-resident point pool. I hear they're talking about doing some stuff in Wyoming, and these points games are changing, and it's almost becoming I don't know how to say it, but a little bit foolish to to basically bank all these points over the years now, being how that regimes can change and the point system can change on you,
Sure.
you know, and from when you start at it. And now, with that being said, I know there's guys out there. I talk to them every year, guys that are close to max, and I get it. They're trying to make the best possible choice. I would say for me, for Arizona elk, is on a start year like this with precipitation, I would apply, and then, you know, I don't know which week's going to be better. We've killed big bulls on the first week, and that's a question we get a lot, and on the second week. Typically speaking, you know, the second week is they're usually going a little bit more. That's typically how it goes, but you know, sometimes the first week though, sometimes that's not the best time to kill the biggest bull, is when they're ripping and tearing, and they're, you know, sometimes the best time is, you know, when you can catch a bull that's being a little lazy. Maybe you get him off by himself, you're able to slip in there on him and get an arrow in him. So it's one of those catch 22s that we get asked a lot, and I've tried to like answer hunters' questions the most honest and best, but it's really difficult, because we've killed big bulls on both weeks, and sometimes I'll tell a hunter, yeah, you go the first week because because a lot of guys will only have 7. Some guys may only have 10 days. Some guys do have 14 days. But for us, a lot of guys only have, the means to do 7. And a lot of guys that we guide only have X amount of time. So, and inevitably, I've been in situations that's worked out. Guys have had a great hunt and killed that bull. And I've been in situations where, man, I wish you were here. I wish we were hunting the second week or the first week with you. So,
sure.
If, with that being said, the moon phase, I mean, it does cause changes. I think we've talked before on your podcast about, how it can affect a slow rut, how it can, sometimes, depending on how it goes, you may want to be, especially if you're hunting thicker country, you may want to be in their bedding areas from 9 to noon. Obviously not right on top of them, but because maybe as soon as the sun went up, they went down, but they might have a lot more energy than what they normally do, or they could be rutting all night. I worry more about cows cycling. What's my weather? The day before, the day of, and the day after. Meaning the day before we start hunting, the day we're hunting, and then the day after. That's what I, just make adjustments off that.
Current weather conditions.
Current weather is. I mean, last year it rained like 5 out of the first 7 days. I mean, and it rained, and I had an older gentleman, and we were hoping we could sit him on water, and he'd have done, probably a lot better in that condition. But those were the conditions we got, and it rained a couple inches that week, and we had to hunt it. And it wasn't optimal, but and each day was, dang it. We had a couple days of low clouds and fog. Visibility was down. You obviously couldn't use your glass as much as you would like to. And with an older gentleman that was hunting, I couldn't just run him to death, in that scenario. So it was a challenging first week, at that, because in those conditions, to be able to move, a lot, in my opinion, versus, especially when the fog's banked down until noon, and you can't just go chase bulls with some older gentleman,
Sure.
you'll wear them out.
Sure. Let's shift gears a second. Antelope, I call you the antelope guru. What is the condition overall, the 30,000 foot view of Arizona antelope, in your opinion?
Okay, so I try not to
This is a
look.
family show now. Come on.
So I try not to look. Um, the tag numbers, there's 551 total tags. Now that's not counting the auction tags and the raffle tag, but 551 statewide tags. There's 323 rifle, 50 muzzleloader, and 178 archery. We are getting down and approaching draw odds, especially for non-residents. I talked to a guy the other day that had 29 points, and he's like, "I'll be done once I draw," and I don't blame him, because you're ludicrous for applying for Arizona antelope just to apply to try to get a tag as a non-resident. Now, if you're applying for other species, it makes sense. So, there still is some good antelope. I just think overall, I don't want to say it, and I'm sure there'll be some good bucks killed and some big bucks killed, but I think the glory days are behind us. And I don't think they're ever coming back. And that's just my personal gut feeling, personal opinion. The tag numbers have gone from in thousands to now 551. We still have genetics. The problem is encroachment is bad. Those rural developments, drought, predators, the highways that we have over their corridors, and they're pretty finicky. And not to mention, besides the traditional predators that we think of, coyotes, bobcats, lions, stuff like that you're talking about, golden eagles, stuff like that doesn't get mentioned and has an impact. With that being said, there's going to be some big bucks taken. Last year, my dad drew. He's a resident. He drew with like 15 points. He drew unit 9. I have no idea why he applied for it, because that unit's kind of gone downhill, but it does have some great genetics, and he killed one of the biggest bucks in the state, I'm sure, on the draw hunt. We were very fortunate. But we didn't see that many pronghorn, not that many at all. And we got very fortunate that we found that buck and got him killed. And I still think there's probably some good ones in that unit. The pressure was low, but as far as like an overall view, I don't think it's good. As far as units, I think it's 5B's probably at the top of the list. 18A, 19B, 4B, 18A and 19B. If you're a non-resident with high points, make sure you apply for the muzzleloader hunt. It goes before the rifle hunt, and the reason being is with today's, you can usually get 150 to 300 yards from pronghorn. It might take a little bit of work, but the top's going to be skimmed on those two hunts. And both those hunts too, there is access issues. And so you will have to, it'll be tough on your own. You'll have to, do your homework. I think Unit 10's a good opportunity unit. They cut the tags again. I think they should be even lower. I still think there's a few bucks. I would like to see it down at 50 tags. I think 50 tags, and I might actually start applying for that unit. And then some other units going along with my dad's hunt is I think Unit 9, Unit 7, and 3A, those 3 units all start around the 1st of October. So they're after all the other hunts, as far as all the other general hunts going on through the state. And I think from a, and I may be totally off, but I think overall you might be getting a less quality hunter that you're competing against. So whether you're a non-resident DIY guy or resident, or you're a guy that's looking to go on a guided hunt, yeah, I think you're going to go, from my experience, I've hunted Unit 7 as well. I've guided a hunt on that in the last 4 years. It just seems like there's a little bit, guys don't take that hunt as serious as they take 5B, 18A, 19B, 10, those 3 hunts. I think they could be a hunt that still could produce a good buck. You're not going to see probably a ton of antelope, and you're probably not going to see very many good bucks, but you're the people that you're quote unquote competing against, the hunters as a whole that maybe draw that hunt, that are applying for those hunts. I don't think the majority of them are as good as hunters and take it as serious. So I think those can be, I don't want to say hidden gems, but they can be an opportunity for a guy that's willing to put his time in or hires the right guy, can still kill a good quality buck and have a decent experience.
What about 8 muzzleloader?
Man, they pumped some tags in 8. To be honest with you, I didn't even look at it this year because I know it was either last year or the year before. I think they had 2 split hunts in there. And don't get me wrong, I say all this. The biggest buck could come from one of the other units that the buck just survived and did, has the right genetics, and he could come from Unit 1, or he could come from Unit 8, or he could come from last year I hunted 18B. I would tell you, if you're a guy, don't apply for that unit. Just the quality is, and numbers are way down. But he could come from, the biggest buck could come from one of these, lesser known units that he has everything right and he survived, and maybe the quality of hunters in there the year before wasn't very good, and boom, pops out that, high 80s, 90-inch buck. So it always seems to happen. But it's getting, I guess, less and less common. I don't think Unit 8 wouldn't say it's a bad choice, but for me personally, it wouldn't be at the top of my list.
Understood. I want to ask you about Rocksteady. How's it going?
It's a grind. So, we shut down production of our bipods in late August. We've been doing back orders to that point. We got all of our back orders caught up in October. And what we had was, essentially, we were still building custom bipods because we couldn't get the tolerance and specs rights on our carbon tubes on the outside ODs for our leg latches. So we were eating it, just spending way too much time on one bipod. And so we took a step back, paused sales, shut off any back ordering, said, okay, can we make the product better, and can we make production faster? And then my partner went back to work doing what he does, and he's like, I think it was the end of September, beginning of October, he's like, I got it. And I'm like, are you sure? And he's like, I got it. And we scratched everything from our former leg latches and locks. And what a lot of people don't see is the R&D that goes into that. I mean, we've probably tried 100 different leg latches and locking systems on the outside diameters of carbon tubes, and at least 15 different carbon fiber tube manufacturers. A lot of time, a lot of work. But anyway, we redesigned our lower legs, and then we had to test them. And I've been testing them. And I'm still testing them. And that's one thing I didn't realize, a little naive. You're always continually testing your product and trying to improve upon it, make it better. Obviously, for us, it's been a production issue. How can we make these faster with the resources that we have, without compromising, quality? And we went with an internal. Josh, my partner, designed an internal locking mechanism, and it's similar to it's not a twist lock like you like to run on your carbon fiber tripods per se, because those have a plastic piece and then they're threaded on the end. It's more similar to a design of an internal lock on some trekking poles that are out there. The biggest difference for us compared to a lot of those is all of our internal parts are stainless and aluminum, so they're all metal. So once we got the design down, tested it, then come the search of how do we get somebody to make these, because we're already making so many parts in-house and, kind of maxed out on that. When I say in-house, my partner has his own machine shop, and we're kind of maxed out on that already. How do we make these faster? And so we searched and searched, and ultimately right now, the way it sits is we've got the design down. I've been running the bipods, the new design lower leg bipods, since mid-October until now. And right now we're waiting for we're waiting for the test parts from a manufacturer in Asia, to send us our internal locking test parts. And then once those are signed off, we'll go in production on those and we'll be ready to roll. So with that being said, it's a longer process. You know this, but probably, I think it's 82% of our bipod is built, all U.S. components, all manufactured here. And then the carbon fiber, and now if these test parts come back, the internal leg locking mechanism internally will be built in Asia. So about 18% of it's built in Asia, and the other 82%, if my redneck math is right, is built in the U.S. And the majority, all the upper parts are all machined in my partner's shop. So once we get those parts back, we'll be ready to roll, and we'll be doing a small run of inventory. We're not doing any more back orders, because one thing goes wrong and then that turns into 2 weeks, that turns into 3 weeks, and you're answering more emails and phone calls about where my stuff is. So we'll do a small run of inventory. We're going to sell out quickly. And then once we get the small run of inventory and the bipods built, machines are already be running to build the next batch of inventory, and we can scale up from there, kind of controlling the growth from there. It was kind of a blessing in disguise as far as shutting down production, because there's a few factors you don't weigh in, and we haven't had a very, very limited number of people had issues with their bipod. I'm talking 2% of the customers, but then you got to go back in and do repairs, and fix the bipods. that come back. And that's something from the consumer side or the customer side you don't see. You know what I mean? You don't think about that side, but from the business side, you go, oh man. And these ones that we're building now, the new design, they're not only production wise way better to build, way faster, especially if these test parts come back to spec and work exactly how we want them, but they're just way more durable and way better. So
has Craig Steele had to learn a lesson in patience?
My wife says I'm the most patient person in the world.
Was that a learned trait, or did you just have to be patient?
And with that being said, I do control my patience. I do control my patience. I'm very good at hiding my rants and outbursts, which is kind of why I'm not on social media, and not because of the business side, but I'm very good at usually hiding that and downplaying it. But internally, there's always a struggle internal. So I mean, I'm glad she thinks I'm patient.
Well, you're a marketing guy too, from a standpoint of wanting to launch your business and have everything go correct. It sounds like you had to basically put everything on whoa instead of go, and but you want to make the best product out there. So knowing you personally and knowing how you are, I know there was part of you that wanted to go, and then there's part of you that said, whoa, because I want it to be the best.
Well, and the reason why I know that too, because I mean, we're a bootstrap. You know, we didn't take on, you know, an investor. We don't have, and nor did we really want to. So we didn't take on a lot of capital, or take on any capital from anybody else other than our own, you know, sweat equity and capital, and we're growing it, you know, basically from nothing. And so with that being said, you know, you either do it one of two ways. You go get a bunch of capital from, you know, investors, dump in it, and then you're a little bit more streamlined, but then somebody owns part of your business, or, you know, and
and your answer, you have to answer to them right now going, where's my return?
Right now we're only answering to our customers and us, which is way more peaceful on one side, but then on the other side it is frustrating, you know, because I mean, you know, you want to capture more market, and you want to see more pictures and get more feedback and great reviews, and you want to blow and go. But you also have to make sure that you're taking care of your past customers with their bipods, and you also have to make sure you can build the product
that's
without
scalable,
losing money.
Right.
And when one bipod, you know, the reason why I say those were custom bipods, when we were having like 90% waste on our carbon fiber was not usable, and it was just because we had to learn the hard way, that essentially, you know, and people will be like, well, why? There is scenarios where you can sand down the tubes. Especially ours are not like a tripod. A tripod, the outside diameter is much larger. Especially on, you know, they're much larger. Ours are, you know, on a bipod, they're really small outside diameter. So anytime you get smaller and smaller, the less margin for error you have. And there is scenarios where you can get them sanded down, but then that adds in cost,
right?
You know, and there is, you know, there is market issues, you know, like when I start out with this, I was thinking, you know, we were going to build a bipod that, you know, if we could hit a market in that $250 to $300 range. But then I wanted to build the best bipod, for hunting that we could possibly build. And, our bipods, aren't 250 and $300, and they're not the most expensive bipod on the market, but they are for hunting, marketed towards hunters. And with that being said, it also comes to expectation. The expectation for me is if we're going to build that, it's got to live up to that. And, and I truly, truly believe we have. And I mean, for those that have followed along and on our rock steady stuff, I mean, we've showed a lot, and that's maybe 5% of what we do, just because it's two guys hammering away right now, and sometimes it can get a little overwhelming when you're, one side of it's the engineer, machining, product development, and the other side of it's marketing, sales, customer service, assembly, all that stuff. But that's just part of it, and it's what comes with it, especially when you bootstrap. And so that's where we're at right now. And I mean, I know for certain, just based on the emails and the texts and the phone calls that I get, that this first small run of inventory, we're going to blow through it within a day or two. And then from there, we're going to keep scaling up. And, one thing that we are doing is where all of our email subscribers will get first notification of when we have inventory. And the reason being for that is because there is a value proposition for them to put their email and for them to follow along with the journey and want it, versus a like on Facebook, Instagram, or YouTube. And we seem to get a little bit deeper connection with our email subscribers than we do from, we're still using those tools because we'd be foolish not to, and those are great marketing platforms. But until we can hit a scale that we can, we need to go further. Our email list subscribers, which you can go to our website and sign up, are the people that are going to get notifications when we have inventory first.
Are you confident it's going to be the best hunting bipod on the market?
Oh, I already know it is. Yeah. I mean, if you factor in, weight, durability, design, function, application, and, the line, we are coming out with another model, which I'm not going to give the description of the model. All of our bipods are the same, from basically we call them uppers and lowers. Our uppers are all the same. So the legs essentially are the differentiate the sizes of, or the style or model of bipod.
Sure.
And that comes from, we started essentially with the P242, and the reason why we built the P242 prone to 42 inches, because I was flat ass frustrated with what the market had out there. And I'm not a shooting stick guy, because I do a lot of big game hunting too, and I don't like to pack extra gear. We do have quick releases on our bipod, but that P242, for me, I'm 6'4", and if you're sitting on any kind of angled slope, I'm talking just angled a little bit. The industry standard 27-inch bipod was anywhere from 3 to 8 inches too short, and it's very frustrating, very, very frustrating. to have that scenario, and that's kind of what was out in the market. I would say too that there's a lot of guys out there that aren't even my height, that are in that 6 foot range or 5'8", 5'9", that, you know, were frustrated with the 27-inch bipod. Now, don't get me wrong, I used a 27-inch bipod, but found myself having to stack rocks underneath the legs, or, you know, when I'm in the seated position. And then like the old Harris, you know, I mean, it would be too high for a lot of prone positions, too low for a lot of seated positions, or most of the seated positions. So it's very frustrating with that regard. But I know what we built, and I know, I mean, as you can tell by how much I rant and rave and talk about it, we put too much work in it, and I know what I am at my core as far as a hunter. And I know what a lot of guys have been looking for, and it's not for everyone. I mean, not everybody, you know, out there, you know, values a bipod enough to spend $500 or hunts enough, you know. But for those, you know, guys that are the more serious ones that get it and want a quality product that's light, durable, has the function capabilities, and I mean, a lot of stuff we talk about too. We have or one of the things we talk about that a lot of like big companies, like I'm talking big companies, have, is they always come out with that lifetime limited warranty. And most of that you read in the fine print, like, yeah, it's got to be perfect. Like you can't even almost use it to get it fixed or whatever. And for us, it's just a straight 5-year repair or replace warranty. Like that's just small business, like straight up, hey, you have issues with your bipod, and thank goodness, even on the other ones, we haven't had very many people send their bipods in to be repaired. And the ones we did have most of the ones we did have were from the very first few batches that we made, and we knew what the issue was. We didn't know which customer had that bipod, and turn around and get it fixed and get it back out to them. But yeah, man, it takes up a lot of my mental time, So,
Well, buddy, it's been fun listening to the journey, and can't wait to see the next installment. And I appreciate you chatting with us about Elk and Antelope. And yeah, it's always great having you on the podcast.
yeah, man, I would just tell those guys that are out there that are just looking for one little piece of information on, you know, obviously pronghorn's pronghorn. And, you know, there's only X amount of tags, and it's, you know, extremely hard as a non-resident to draw those. But I would tell those guys that have those upper end on the points, and they've been, you know, whether it be for archery or the early rifle, or early muzzleloader and Unit 9, this is the best case scenario that you can get with the way the draw happens in Arizona. So if you've been in the last 2 years sitting on the sidelines, I would tell you to put your best first choice and second choice if you want it, and make sure you get your application in, because, you know, it could be next year we could have another good year like this, or it could be 5 years. But it's based on the draw deadline. And when the draw happens, this is the best case scenario at this point. And I just read on the National Weather Service Office for Flagstaff that they're thinking that we're going to get some more weather around Super Bowl weekend, but I don't know how much, and they could change their mind between now and then.
Sure. What's the best way for people to reach out to you?
The best way for right now, I'm doing a little social media fasting for my personal stuff. So if you message me on there, you won't see it. The best way is my phone number, 928-315-5889. And the best way is either text me and then I'll get back with you. You can call me. I may be on a hunt. I may be working in Rocksteady, so I may not answer, or I may be at, some family function, but I'll get back with you. And then the other ways you can follow Exclusive Pursuit Outfitters on Instagram. You can just search it, and on Facebook and on YouTube. We have a website. I do still do predator hunts. I don't do as many now. I'm just doing them on the weekends because I'm working during the week on Rocksteady. And then I do have some guides that do some of the hunts, but you can follow the predator hunts at Predator Exclusives on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and then Rocksteady is on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube as well. And you can go to our website, rocksteadyhuntinggear.com.
ROK.
Yep, ROKSTEDI.
Right on, buddy. Great to hear your voice. Glad you were able to share with us, and God bless. Take care, okay?
All right, you too, Jay.
All right, buddy.
Later.
Bye.